Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Multifamily Hangout. I'm super excited for all of you to be here to join us today. I'm going to start by introducing our special friends and our sponsor, Apartment Snapshot. Their revolutionary platform, the first gamified performance and employee engagement tool designed explicitly for multifamily professionals, is transforming the way we approach performance and employee engagement in this industry. Check them out. Amazing platform and an amazing product. With this being said, I want to introduce my very special co-host today. It's a guest host, Lori Agudo. Lori, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Adrian, for having me. I'm about to introduce our guest, but I wanted to go ahead and welcome the audience. This is a huge deal for me personally, my first co-hosting gig. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Adrian. So without further ado, I will introduce you to the real star of the hour. We have with us today Tony Sousa, who is the Vice President of Marketing Relations at RPM Living, and he is joining us live from San Antonio, Texas. So hello, Tony. We'll turn it over to you to say some initial words of welcome to the audience, and then we're going to get into it, buddy.
Say something, right? Say something. Hey, guys.
Say
Lori,
something.
thank you for the intro. Adrian, always good to see you. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me, and happy to jump right in.
Perfect. And you did say no question was off limits. So we're going to keep this entertaining. So first and foremost, tell us about your current role and how you leverage your personal brand to help elevate RPM Living.
Well, yeah. So my current role, 3 months, as of 3 months, is the VP of Marketing Relations. What is a VP of Marketing Relations? That's essentially for RPM Living. I'm the company spokesperson. I am the chief brand ambassador, if you will. And yeah, so that's the role I find myself in today. I think the question is, how have I leveraged a personal brand to elevate a company brand? Well, I think what we figured out here at RPM is they go hand in hand. The reality is, over the years, I've built relationships online and in person. For many years, along with both of you and many watching as well. And, personal brand sort of, I guess, starts to take place. I feel a little awkward almost using that word to some extent. Adrian knows that. But ultimately it's your reputation. It's the relationships and the reputation that you have in the industry. And I've been able to establish relationships and hopefully build a positive reputation over the years. And I'm just super lucky that RPM Living has identified, I think, some special gifts and talents that I have, and has really positioned me in a place within this role to be a lightning rod of attention, online, hopefully in person, in my interactions at conferences and association events and other, to continue just to garner interest in obviously everything that RPM Living is doing across the country, growing rapidly, building a very strong culture across the country, and really just continuing to grow and operate properties across the country really efficiently.
So you would consider yourself the brand ambassador, the host with the most, maybe.
When it was brought to my attention, it was the BA word, the brand ambassador word was used, and so I'm carrying that torch. I have almost 20 years of operational experience, so I haven't been a spokesperson all of my career, jumping from company to company, being a spokesperson. I happen to be in this industry for almost 20 years. I love this industry. I've built a lot of relationships here. I'm just pretty fortunate that I work for a really innovative and forward company that I think saw, again, like I said, some of my unique gifts and skills, and obviously, a growing reputation and a network, in this business. And they've asked me to be a part of what they're doing to really continue to grow the brand awareness, and continue to grow the culture, and continue to be a lightning rod of attention for investors, clients, and top talent across the country. So so it's going incredibly well, and I'm excited to be here.
Good deal. There's some other things we'll touch upon later. I'm curious to pick your brain on, and that is things like the employee experience. You talk about being a brand ambassador and really putting your face out there, but how that translates into your employee experience and your involvement with that. So we'll talk more about that later.
Sounds good.
So Tony, you just mentioned that the two brands, your personal brand and a company brand, go hand in hand. I'd like for you to stay on that a little bit and I'll elaborate. How does that go? How do they go hand in hand? I'm super curious about your vision about this.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I think it starts upon you as a candidate in the hiring process. I think you need to, if you're looking for a company and you're partnering with a company to work, with a group organization. I think you should believe that you have some alignment in a lot of ways, and that goes for me, it goes for anybody, goes for anybody watching, goes for you, either one of you. And I think it starts there. And so I think, my being a part of the company early on as the vice president of operations, I think people at RPM Living, I believe, as well as myself, felt we were very aligned in a lot of ways. I think just differently or uniquely about me is I understand marketing as well as an operator. I understand branding, but more than anything, I've really just built relationships over, like I said, 15 plus years. And then no surprise to anybody watching, I've been very vocal with my thoughts and opinions and inspirational posts and other things that I've done over the last 3 to 5 years. And it's just kind of the momentum, sort of perfect storm, as they say, of events. And again, RPM came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I think your personal brand really aligns with our company, and we'd like to kind of take that from you overseeing your market to now, can you represent that at scale, at a national level?" So that's organically really where it came from. It wasn't by any means my mission from the beginning of starting with any company or anything. I think it's just absolutely organic, and really, I think serves both myself and hopefully the company as well, as with tremendous value.
So you described the alignment, right? How about the limitations right now? Obviously, when you represent a brand, a company brand, such a gigantic brand, one of the top 5 companies in a country, in our industry, like, obviously there are limitations, right? You have to be careful how you craft your messages and everything, because you're not just representing yourself, but you're representing your company brand, a huge company brand. And not only that, but I think, no pressure here, you're the first person in our industry that I know that's been like designated to be the brand ambassador, obviously with a little bit of a different title. But I'm curious about how do you navigate through the challenges of having to be like careful how you craft the messages and everything, so the brand is actually enhanced but not affected by what you might say or do.
Yeah, no, it's a good question right out of the gate. A tough question. I knew I can get that from you, but I think it's one probably those listening may be curious about. Frankly, at the end of the day, any employee that works for any company is representing that company in all that they do, whether they really realize that or they don't. Your human interactions, your online footprint, if you will, right? You may think it's private, but it's probably not. So I think it stems from that. I think today, this generation, at least of the social media generation, is conscious of, or should be conscious of, how you represent yourself, whether you're a spokesperson or you're not. At the end of the day, everybody is representing their brand and their company. And so you need to be really careful about how you go about doing that. But at the same time, you need to be yourself. And I think that's the essence of your question, right? Is like, how can you still be you authentically, but still represent the company, in a way that still represents the company in all positive ways. It's, what I'll say is, I work very closely with an amazing team of marketers and branders to really kind of help us sort of lean into one another. I had a really good meeting yesterday with my team. Just, how can I lean into more of what initiatives that RPM may be doing internally and externally? And then how are ways that maybe RPM can support some of the stuff that I'm doing, whether it be podcasts like this or conferences or speaking events or other. And so listen, not everybody has a company like RPM Living that is willing to sort of lean into somebody and support somebody's personal brand. Let's be honest, most corporations, many executives don't even like that word and don't even like the fact that their employees may even think about having a personal brand, because That's just not acceptable. The reality is things are changing, and the things are changing pretty rapidly, and the workforce is becoming younger as well. And that younger generation, as we all know, if they can't be themselves and personalize their experience, they're not interested in working for that company. And so I think what RPM has done an amazing job of is to say, hey, listen, Tony, you're doing a great job at your job, and you've built a great reputation. We'd love to bring you into the fold to not only show people within the company like, hey, we support this, but let's show the greater industry and other industries that you can really align yourself with somebody that, again, for lack of a better term, has a personal brand. It's not a terrible thing. You could really align, and you could actually be pretty powerful together. So that's our goal. That's what we're working to do. Like I said, I'm 90 days in, and to be honest, and Adrian, we've talked. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, and RPM I think feels the same way, frankly. So what you've seen over the last couple of months is probably just the tip of the iceberg of ideas, concepts, and creative that we have for the future.
That actually that makes me think of how your position specifically, a couple things to unpack here. As far as a traditional career path, I wouldn't see this as necessarily a traditional career path, especially being, head of operations and then transitioning to this role. And what excites me about that personally is that's also something that's changing within our industry from what I've seen. And that is that, gone is the traditional path. There are many different types of paths available within an organization, and that our industry is realizing and pivoting to make those changes and create these different positions to maximize the efforts and the talent within the organization. And I think your position is a prime example of that. Do you see your position as, and I hate using the word ambassador, but really just when it comes to hiring talent, what do you feel like your impact is with attracting other people? You have your LinkedIn platform. That's how I know you. I followed you for some time. I've always enjoyed what you've posted, which is why I was so excited for this opportunity today. But what do you see as a direct relation between your current position and attracting that top tier talent moving forward?
I think, it's a good question, Lori. Thank you. I think it's directly correlated. I think it's actually the primary driver of the importance and value of my position. Is those listening and the three of us understand the attention economy. Attention is there's a scarcity of attention. We're all very busy in our day jobs. Social media is very noisy. And so if a company or a brand or an individual can harness attention through engagement, through content and gather engagement and involvement, or all sorts of the metrics that we take a look at, then they become valuable. And I think on the LinkedIn space, people's mindset when they go to LinkedIn is partly informative, but largely I want to know what's going on in the job market, right? And I may be looking for an opportunity. Most people looking, and especially some of the top talent throughout the country, they're not actively looking, they're passively looking, right? So and how are they passively looking? Well, they're looking for companies that seem to align with what they're looking for, maybe culturally, fiscally, other. Can I play a role, and others on the RPM team play a role in getting their attention, stopping their scroll, disrupting their scroll, right? To be like, who is this person? What are they doing? And so it's really near and dear to me and in my heart, and Adrian, this, is to keep this purity of person or character or authenticity of character, because I know what happens. They'll stop on sort of an interesting piece of content. They may feel like, okay, you tricked me into looking at this. I'm going to look at it. It feels like it's authentic, but it's probably fake, because we're all very skeptical about everything in life, especially social media. But then what they do is, they'll jump to my page and be like, okay, does this guy actually work in this industry? Okay, does this guy actually have a consistent message of what he says? Okay, check. Okay, where does this guy work? Okay, this is cool. This company really supports that. They click on the company link either in LinkedIn or go to the website. Then they start searching around. They start looking at just triggers that they're looking for within a company. And then where they go to the careers page, right? Especially if they're passively looking. And I'm not even saying actively looking, I'm saying they're passively looking. Then they go to the careers page, and then they start looking for, regions of the country that they're in. They look for positions that maybe they're in or they want to be in. And that's, to me, in a nutshell, in a non maybe sort of technical way to describe it, I think that's the life cycle of what a brand ambassador or company spokesperson, but ultimately somebody that can garner attention, stop the scroll and disrupt their scroll to lead them ultimately to the company that individual happens to work for, because I'd like to be a part of what they're doing.
Yeah. And that's something that, when you talk about priorities and what people are looking for, that's something that shifted post-pandemic, I have found.
Absolutely.
People reprioritize, and, if your values as a company are not in line with their values as an individual, they're not interested.
I agree. And they're going to make that decision really quickly. And if they're not aligned, they're out.
Tony, I want to bring some perspective next. You are now the spokesperson, you're the PR, like the face of RPM, we could say, in a way. And your background, you grew up in this industry as a operation person.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference. There are two different worlds, right? Why the shift? What are you enjoying the most, and what helped you make the shift? And something I'm just gonna reveal about your background, something that maybe some people do know, some people don't know. You've been an actor in a previous life. So does that play any type of role into who you are today? So I think it's more than one question. There's several questions here.
How many questions you got there? I'll answer the initial one. What was my reason, or what brought me into this? Well, first of all, I was graciously and humbly sort of approached by this opportunity to say, hey, can we go bigger with this, right? And can we involve you in this way? We love what you're doing operationally, but we think, you have a unique gifted skill set in this space. And would you be interested? And so, I had to go through my process, and I'll be frank, like I had to I'm like, am I getting physically or am I getting kicked out of operations because they don't want me here? And I don't, I've come to realize I don't think that's the case, but I had to go through my process and realize, and then I came to the conclusion that I think I agree. I think they're visionaries, the executive visionaries at RPM Living saw it before I saw it, probably. Adrian, you may have seen it much earlier. You've always talked to me about a lot of things, but they came to me and they saw it before I saw it. And what I came to realize, and what I see now more than ever, is the impact that a role like this can have on the culture, both internally, externally, brand awareness, and ultimately sort of lead an incredible pipeline of candidates, top talent throughout the country that's intrigued by what we're doing, whether they convert and join our company or not, whether they're qualified or not. That's for somebody else to determine, HR professionals and hiring managers. But my job is to say, hey, we're here, we're amazing. I happen to be employed by them. Whatever you think about me, hopefully it's positive, because I think I probably wouldn't be in this position if most people thought negatively of me. That's not the PR that you want. But ultimately, yeah, I was convinced that I think they're onto something, and then I had to come to the realization that I think I can give value in this way, and I think I have special gifts in this way to communicate and connect with an audience in a way that a lot of people can't. Operations is very different than what I do every day now, for sure. Do I occasionally sneak into ops meetings just because I miss it? You don't tell anybody. Yes, I just want to be a fly on the wall and and be in these meetings sometimes, Zoom meetings specifically, or Teams meetings usually. But but also at the same time, it keeps me fresh, and it keeps me relevant and sharp with what operators are struggling with and what they're challenged with. And so that's important for me to continue to do. And I have plans for 2024 to spend days on site and be a lease consultant for a day, or maybe a maintenance technician for a day, and spend some time there, because ultimately, this is an industry that I love, that has given back to me and given me so many opportunities. It's a company that I feel the same about. And if I could help in any way and it can enrich me and my understanding of their challenge, then that makes me more valuable in my messaging. When I speak at conferences and others, I can speak with absolute truth from on the ground information versus sort of this theoretical public speaker PR guy. And ain't nobody in operations want to hear from that guy. So I still have street cred enough that I can remain credible. But I'll tell you, as time goes in this position, I will lose credibility, by the day, by the week, by the month, and I understand that. So I need to find ways to stay plugged in consistently if I want to, maintain credibility with this industry. So
that actually, that makes me think of the kind of like almost like the undercover boss concept. You go spend time in the field and kind of really talk to your boots on the ground, so to speak, your people in the field. What are their challenges? Because those change, those are ever changing. That connection is so important. It's honestly, it's what I do as a training director. Is I'm out there in the field finding out what their needs are so I can apply that from an education perspective. So you do have to remain in the mix to stay authentic and keep that street cred. So I'm really happy to hear that you do that, because it is important.
Yeah, it is important. It's probably the most important thing I can do. What am I a spokesperson for, right? Like, I get it, a company, but at the end of the day, like, what do? We offer incredible management services and take care of residents at the end of the day. So if I lose touch with what we do and what our people are struggling with or what they need or whatever support, then frankly, I find myself useless. So, so that's my perspective on these things. And I think as you're leveraged into different positions, Tony, can you public speak and be on this podcast and do this? If I'm not allocating the time to roll up my sleeves or put a name tag on in the office, then I'm essentially going to write myself out of a job, frankly. But there's also a lot of people that I think aren't, do what I do for a living and maybe have gotten comfortable in this lane. I think that's a dangerous place to be.
Well, I'm glad you don't stay comfortable in that lane, because you don't grow. You don't grow in that comfortable lane. You grow when you get out of your comfort zone. I do want to piggyback back. I did mention earlier that I did want to, because this is a topic I'm personally passionate about, and that is the employee experience. I kind of touched upon it earlier, and I said we'd circle back around to it. So that time has come. Now, I know of RPM Living, obviously not only through you. I have several friends that have worked for the organization, and they've always spoken very highly about your company's culture. That's the reason that they work for your organization. So my question to you is, from an employee experience standpoint, what is RPM Living doing maybe to set themselves apart from other companies when it comes to retaining the talent that you have? We know we work in an industry where there's high turnover, right? And, we're in an instant gratification society. So kind of, all right, I've hit my mark, time to move on. What are you doing to entice your employees to stay?
It's a good question. I think it's probably the magic question that every company is trying to figure out. There's a lot of platitudes. There's a lot of things on websites. There's a lot of spokespeople. But at the end of the day, I think what we're trying to do differently is authentically build relationships and a support system with everyone at every level. Culture is often talked about. It's easy to quote. It's really difficult to live and breathe, because frankly, it's something. And defined today, I was on a podcast earlier, RPM podcast that is hosting it, and we talked a little bit about what culture is. Culture essentially is sort of this living, breathing organism, and as an organization, you need to be able to do that and set up, I think, apparatuses and touch points and checkpoints to be able to sort of assess your livelihood or your vitals, and are you doing that? And I think organizations do that through surveying, oftentimes, obviously focus group opportunities. I think there's other ways that you could probably check pulse as well. But as a leader, if you're overseeing a region, or if you're regional RVP, VP, have these ongoing conversations, and I think we're trying to have the hard conversations. Our RPM Living has really grown exponentially over the last, call it, 5+ years. And so, when you grow that quickly, it's vitally important to continue to maintain and keep these relationships open and transparent, and continue to communicate what's working and what's not. And I'll tell you, this is one organization that's willing to address the things that are working. Sure, that's easy. Most organizations love to do that, and those are the posts you see on LinkedIn. But the true organizations that are trying to really provide a better working environment are the ones that are willing to listen to the stuff that's ugly, that's not pretty. And that feedback goes to the very top here, and I think you'll hear more and more. I think in the coming weeks and months ahead, we've been able to sort of get on tape a lot of our executives talking about how important it is to them, and it's not it's not just on tape, and I don't think they're just saying it, and I know they're not just saying it because I was an ops guy for a long time, and I've seen it, and so it's not a clean answer, Lori, but I also don't think the answer is clean either. We live in we actually work. This business is very messy. It's very dynamic, and I think a lot of people have a hard time figuring it out, either on the ops side, supplier side. And so the more you have experience in this industry, the more you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get dirty and try to understand what our industry is, who our people are, what motivates them, what disincentivizes them, what incentivizes them. You'll be in a better place than if you didn't do any of that.
Yeah, and I also find that transparency, especially from the top, really not only how your company is performing, but what is priority to them, what is their company culture, not having a breakdown of communication. Being a company that does survey your employees, you already know the data that's out there. Are we feel like we're reaching the masses. We think the message is getting through, but is it really? So I really appreciate that your organization is willing to take a hard look at that and say, okay, we need to maybe improve here. We need to, add this program. I understand you're doing the internal podcast. You mentioned that earlier. That's something I actually, heard through a webinar that I participated in. I'm talking about companies, sponsoring their employees to do the things that you do, speak publicly, having both internal, external podcast opportunities for employees to have a voice. So I love that your organization does that. It's very exciting.
I think, and Lori, you know this. I mean, and I think those listening probably know this too. I mean, the more you try to control or restrict that your employees being themselves, it actually post-pandemic it's gonna act in complete reverse, right? Like you're not going to be able to control it. You're not going to be able to make them somebody they're not. And I think there's been a corporate culture for many decades that sort of say do as I say and be who I want you to be. And one day you'll be lucky enough to have a big title and a whole bunch of responsibility and headaches. That's gone. I still think that there's probably many that are trying to hold on to that with Kung Fu grip, but it's slipping away very quickly. Yeah. And I think they're seeing that revolution happening on one platform, LinkedIn. I think many. Let's go honest. I think many are really bamboozled by certain people's engagement levels. Me probably being one of them. I'm sure many people who don't engage in anything or they see it. I know they see this, but I think they're just like, why is this happening? Why is this so engaging? And I think, that level of confusion in and of itself is a symptom of an issue. Because people engage, whether it be externally or internally, when they feel they're heard, and when they feel they're supported, and they feel that like the person engaging with them relates to them or has empathy.
Genuine. That word. Let's stay there. That word.
Yeah.
That word that and I know as being head of operations, you can speak to this. What happened during the pandemic? We had the Great Resignation. Why did that occur? A lot of it had to do with lack of empathy.
So
some leaders learned the hard way.
I've spoken about that a lot. I mean, the pandemic changed everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And you have this big uproar of like, what's going on? Why is everyone leaving? You're confused because you weren't listening. And if you were listening, they were telling you they didn't love how they were treated during the pandemic, right? They were out on a mission to good luck and stay safe, right? And while many of us will bunker in and keep ourselves safe, and I understand the dynamics of the virus for the most part, right? But I during that time was on the ground, and I probably even too early for myself, but I knew it was the right thing to do, was cleaning door handles like within 30 days or less of the pandemic. Although I was getting direction above me to stay safe and stay home. I just thought if I'm leading sort of an army into battle, I understand maybe I'm important or I'm the leader, but at the same time, I felt I had to be on the front lines with them to earn their trust and their respect, that I was willing to take a bullet or take a virus. My life is no better than your life. And just because we have different titles doesn't mean my life is better than your life. We're all humans, right? And so, I saw when I did that, although granted, and I've wrote a lot about this, I was nervous. I was scared, and fear had me entangled early on in the pandemic. To clean a doorknob, I was nervous about that, but I just knew it was the right thing to do. So I did it, and I was still nervous about it. But I look back on it today and think it was probably one of the best, most pivotal things I did as a leader. And it's challenged me to do it in all sorts of ways, both personally and professionally as a leader today, to be the first one to pick up a broom, or be the first one to take a hard resident, be the first one to take on the challenge when you're expecting your team to do that. If you're not willing to, then I'm not sure you're in the right leadership role. So the pandemic changed everything for everyone. And so, then you have the other side of the pendulum of like, good luck. I tell everybody all the time, site team members, they'll forgive because they're really forgiving, sweet folks. This industry is an amazing group of people, but they didn't forget. And as soon as the coast was clear, and as soon as things started to settle down, they were gone, right? The essence of the Great Resignation. And so they forgave, but they didn't forget, and they moved around. They found, and they're looking for, to this day, still that organization that they can align with, that believes in them, and they believe in them. And RPM obviously is an amazing company that does that for their people at every level, rank and file. And I'm just one example of that. I happen to be obviously in a very visible role, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things that, unfortunately aren't on podcasts, and don't post every day on LinkedIn.
Before going to the next question, Tony, I do want to acknowledge those of you that join us today, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's not easy to break away from a very busy day. We all know how crazy it could get in property management, in multifamily. I want to thank you all that drop in comments, and I encourage you, please type in your name and location, where you're coming from, and also send us some questions for Tony. Surprise Tony. Okay, blindside him. We want him blindsided. And
we want him on his toes.
With that being said, something that just came to mind, right? And this is about the public discourse in our space. People that go to multifamily related conferences, NAA, OPTEC, you name it, they only represent less than 1% of people that work in a multifamily, whether they're operators or service providers. Those people typically don't have a voice. How necessary is for this type of conversations to get to them? And how can we make those conversations relevant? How can we address their pain points, their concerns, their worries?
So I'm just going to repeat the question back, Adrian, because I think it's a good one. Are you speaking to those on site, those on the supplier side, maybe maintenance, entry level positions?
Everybody, Tony, that's not part of the conference circuit, that doesn't necessarily have access, like you said, someone that's doing a great job, but they're not on a podcast or on LinkedIn talking about, so people don't know about it. But they also have concerns. They would also love to talk to someone like you and get advice, get guidance. How can we do that in a public space to make those voices heard, to actually maybe answer some questions that we know they have and nobody else is there to answer for them?
Yeah, it's how do you how do you find world peace is sort of the magnitude, I think, of that question, right? But I think world peace is important, and I think this question is greatly important, and I don't mean to be tongue in cheek, because I don't think that this is humorous at all, and I don't think you're being humorous, and I think I don't know if I have the answer is the honest answer to you, Adrian, but I do think podcasts like this And I think, one that I'm working on with RPM and will evolve into, I think, a really transparent place for all individuals, rank and file, all companies within this industry to be able to sort of participate in and ask the questions they would like to have answers. Can everybody have exposure or relationship with you or me or Lori? No, not necessarily, but can they find media and outlets and places to learn and grow more than ever before? Yes, probably more than even we had the capabilities when we were young associates trying to figure things out. We had books and I don't even know, MySpace. I mean, it was you had to dating myself a little bit, but you had to just your small circle of people around you. You had to end up just kind of tapping into them and just hoping that they had good insight. Now I think the world is opened up to everybody, right? Like you can listen to, depends on who you're listening to, from Oprah to Gary Vee to David Goggins to Adrian Danila to Lori to me, right? Like you can, whatever your taste is. Now, I think at the same time, the algorithms haven't helped in that way, right? So if you're just going down a lane of like just consuming content from one particular group because you just like the way they think, that's okay. But I would challenge everybody listening, especially young in your career, to have a diversity of leaders that you listen to, because some are going to have different angles. Some may not agree with other perspectives. And I think it's important in society and in the workplace to invite diversity of thought as well, because I think that will always lead to better thoughts, right? Better action items, better concepts. Not one is better than the other. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're in business, so you implement one over the other. The marketplace will dictate, maybe which one is more productive in that situation. But I think there's a lot of options, and I'm working with RPM to try to provide an outlet for those to learn. Largely, the reason why I'm ever present on LinkedIn is also to interact with a little bit of everybody. And I know you guys both do a good job of that. If anyone has seen anything that I do, I try to respond to every single comment, every single person. I don't have a ghost commenter. I wish I did maybe, but or virtual assistant. I don't have any of it. I try to spend the time that I can, given the projects and the deadlines and all the things I have in my day job. And of course, I have 3 kids, expecting my 4th in May. And so, so I'm busy in my personal life. Thank you guys. I'm busy in my personal life as well as my day job, but it's super important to me to respond to individuals that took the time to comment or give their thoughts or feelings on something I had to say. I hope never to take that for granted.
Actually, that does pose a question. You mentioned, and to kind of piggyback on Adrian's question about, getting information to the masses, especially, a maintenance professional, for example. One of the things that I do a great deal of in this industry is maintenance training. It's actually what I spoke about at Apartmentalize this year, is maintenance training programs, and them feeling like the forgotten bunch, and the information doesn't necessarily reach them. So I appreciate that you're looking at ways to get the information to the masses, to give them those people to follow, to give them that guidance, because it is so important that at every level that they feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and that their individual contribution matters, right? I can tell you one of the ways that our organization does that is we actually have a training intranet where we host all of those resources, and we give them a Reddit type news feed to be able to interact and get a response from somebody in operations or somebody in a support department or somebody in training. So there are certainly ways, and leading with a technology footprint is not something our industry is known for, but the pandemic also changed that, as far as the use of technology and leaning towards technology to keep conducting business as usual. Post-pandemic, what do you think the most profound changes from a technology standpoint, the ones that are here to stay, the ones that maybe positively impacted our business or industry as a whole?
I mean, there's so many, right? We're having essentially a Zoom call today. And I think that has allowed for a lot of creative thought to come from, do I have to do things in person? Can I leverage technology in a smarter, more efficient way? And I think we were all challenged early pandemic and mid pandemic to figure that out, quite frankly. Has DoorDash, sales, increased since? Sure. Zoom and other platforms, I'm sure are doing well. They're probably not seeing the same year over year financial results as they did 20 over 21, but everyone's trying to sort of put their foot in the door here. In our industry, I think there is self-guided tours, which I think are here to stay. That technology was around; it wasn't fully developed pre-pandemic. And frankly, during the pandemic, it wasn't really fully ready to go either. Let's be honest. But we all sort of put our heads together to figure out how to make it work. I think the biggest thing that the pandemic has done, technology is obviously moving at a rapid pace, and will probably only continue to. I think it really just compounds on itself, is kind of what technology often does. But I think what the pandemic also did to help sort of slow down technology a little bit, which I don't think is a bad thing. Sorry tech guys. But I think it brought it back to the value of human relationships and human interactions. If you recall, in 2020 in our industry, what did we do for resident events? Well, we had a guy that played guitar go to the courtyard, and everyone came out, and they got off their sort of work happy hour on their Zoom, and they came out and they got some fresh air, and they enjoyed some live music, and they waved and supported one another across the way, balcony to balcony, right? Like that were probably some of the most beautiful scenes we saw in our industry across the world. I think, Europe and Italy, and there was just so many beautiful visuals of human connectivity happening. And human connectivity doesn't always have to happen in person, but I think it's become even more valuable than it was before. So I think what the pandemic has done in so many ways is just realigned our perspectives about what's important in life. And I know it has for me, and for most that I talk to. I think we all were alarmed at how quickly the world can go sideways, and how quickly we can lose loved ones. We could be disconnected or not see loved ones for an extended period of time. And I think a lot of us, have told ourselves quietly or publicly, I never want that to happen again. And so, I want to make the most of every opportunity I possibly can. And I'm trying to do that. I think you guys are trying to do that. I want my children to be able to do that. So, yeah.
I think it's so important to keep the human element, that human aspect, and have people understand the importance of relationships, and keeping that human contact even in a digital age. Is it easy to hide behind a computer? Of course it is. But I think the pandemic showed us the importance and the value of the mental health aspect of still having a connection person to person. And I agree, that was a beautiful thing to see people come together during that time. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that people reprioritized.
Yeah, I mean, people were struggling with a lot of things emotionally, mentally pre-pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated that, and so and we're still dealing with a lot of the fallout of that for a lot of reasons, frankly. But ultimately, that's a part of the package of what employees today are looking for in an organization, and an organization that not only tells them that we understand that, but shows them through their experience. And so, because if they don't have that experience, we all know people will drop keys like you haven't seen before. And so, to be honest, I think it's just holding our industry, other industries, and leaders accountable for walking the walk and not just talking the talk. And to be honest, I think there's some growing pains in maybe some leaders that have been able to talk the talk for a while. And now you're having to walk the walk, and it feels a little uncomfortable, but the walk is what the walk is, and it always should be. So
before going into the next question, I do want to say what a special moment, Tony. Thank you for sharing the great news with us. Waiting for a new family member. to enter our world. Congratulations, my friend. We're so excited for you. Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Congratulations.
Yes, it was. It's an unexpected bundle of joy, but it is a blessing nonetheless. And so, yes, 2024 will be an eventful year for me in a lot of ways. So, thank you, Adrian, for saying that. Now, what I want to do, and I'm at 7%, Adrian. So. I don't know if this is a good opportunity, maybe for a quick intermission or interaction with those listening right now, but I may need to jump laptops. If you can give me about 5, I'll be right back to join. Is that okay?
You could absolutely take all the time you need. We have so many questions, and it'll be a shame not to ask you those questions.
Worst case scenario, if I can't figure out this tech stuff, I'll jump back on my cell phone and pardon the jumpy footage, but we'll be there to answer any questions that are out there.
This is what we do in a live environment.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
We just
we know this.
Welcome to the pandemic adjustments. So this is a live example.
Jump on the other laptop, and I have 2 questions ready for you from the audience. We want to ask you next. To make them the next questions. Okay.
All right. Buy me a little time. Give me about 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
You got it. So
lucky us, we can talk all day, Adrian and I. So we're good there.
Of course. So Lori, what's your take so far from the conversation? I feel like we're about to get warmed up here.
We are just getting warmed up. I mean, we have barely scratched the surface. So many things. I mean, Tony has a unique insight in that he was heading up operations, and now he's in this really, brand ambassador type role. And we all know him because he's so visible. And it's really, it's interesting to hear how he's able to use this role to attract talent, to better disseminate information to the masses within the organization, to grow their business. It lends to so many things, and his background kind of aids in that, and his ability to do that. It's one of the greatest things about doing these podcasts is really just finding out those intricacies about people's roles and about how, getting insight into how they do business. And, for those listening in the audience, you can take a little bit here and a little bit there, and, you can take it back to your organization, say, hey, I heard that, this organization is doing this. And you can even put your own spin on it. But I think, the idea generation is one of the things that will come from a session like, the Multifamily Hangout, and having different types of guests and in different roles and different vantage points. Everybody can gain a little bit, from each session. So I think that's really profound for me as a co-host, but also as, kind of a follower who has followed Tony's career for some time now, and have met with him in person. And the one thing for the audience, I have to share with you all, I actually met Tony for the first time at Apartmentalize. Same thing with Adrian. It was the first time we actually met in person after connecting on LinkedIn for so long. And what you see in the podcast, what you see on LinkedIn, that is who you see in person. He is consistently the same individual, no matter in which manner you connect with him. And I think there's something to be said about that, and the importance of not only being authentic, but being consistent in that authenticity in everything that you do is so very important, because that's also what today's job seeker is looking for. Me, teaching, whether it's for an apartment association or whether it's for our organization, I might make a mistake. I might not know all the answers, and I'm perfectly fine with sharing that and being authentic in that sense. And I'm here just as much to learn from you as you are from me. And that is the element that people probably respect most from someone that is speaking at a session, at a conference, or teaching a class, is that connect with them as who you are. Don't be this rehearsed, scripted version of yourself because that's what you think your audience wants and needs. No, be you. They want you. They want to know you. They want to learn from you. They want to know that it's okay to make mistakes, because failure is an opportunity to learn and grow. And we always must be doing that. And we always must be learning for the remainder of our journey. So those are some key points that I kind of wanted to make to the audience since you are all joining us virtually. But yeah, Tony's a great guy to connect with. If you ever have the opportunity to meet him, go up and say hi, introduce yourself. He's warm, he's friendly, he's approachable. So as we roll into 2024 and conference season starts again, just keep that in mind.
And he's also the type of person that you see on social media. This is who he is in real life.
Mm-hmm.
A very warm, very generous individual. He's never stingy with his time, and he's always out there. You just have to reach, like, DM him. He's not gonna ignore you, like, and he's gonna be, hey, can we hop on a call? Can I help you with this?
Yeah.
With his friends, I could, share this. He's the type of person that checks on you. Hey, like, are you doing okay, man? How are things going? Especially, I can't even tell you, how many times since I started, this new journey on my own, he reached out to just check on me. A real friend and a very, very real individual and extremely good human being. This is who Tony Souza is.
Also very humble. Let's not forget the humility. There was one post in particular that really stuck out to me that he said just because he's gotten to a certain level, being in a certain role in his organization, that doesn't mean that he went out to buy the nicest house or the nicest car. Like, that he's happy with what he has, and he's content and fulfilled with what he has. And that, he places value and priority on the things that matter, like his family. So
Tony's back.
Hey, guys.
All right.
Hey, thanks for buying some time for me.
Absolutely, Tony. So the next, I want to give the stage to those in the audience. There've been a couple of questions that were asked. So I'm going to start with the first one, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have a photographer or paparazzi following you 100% of the time?
Who's that question from?
Charlotte. Charlotte asked this question. Charlotte Chota. And I had to ask. Sorry, I had to ask the question. So that is,
and we love you for that, Charlotte.
I want to know.
Hey, that's a good question. Do I have a photographer that follows me around? No. In this new role, I do have more resources than I did before that can capture moments for sure. But I will tell you, you may be surprised to know that some photos that I've taken that I'm sure your thought was like, who took that? My 8-year-old daughter is really good at taking iPhone photos. So you just have to be creative, and I think utilize, the people around you and be smart. But do I have a photographer or a couple of photographers here locally? I do, that I enjoy their work and and occasionally, connect with them for some fun stuff. I do, but yes, hard-hitting questions. Yes. So people want to know.
And the second one from Sandra. What would be your recommendation for individuals looking to build personal brand awareness as a new contributor to multifamily?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, I think, Adrian, you and I, we've talked over the years, I think you have to approach it in like levels in a video game. I think for you to, think that you're going to jump on daily and just start, blasting your opinions out and feel comfortable doing that, and then also growing an audience that way without having any prior experience or spending a lot of time maybe commenting on other people's content or participating, in other forums and other things. I would highly suggest, small steps I think are going to be key to growing your personal brand and brand awareness. Obviously, LinkedIn is a big professional network for sure, but there's other platforms there too. I mentioned to somebody that was surprised to know I post more content on Instagram than I do LinkedIn. I utilize Facebook. I'm not on TikTok. I don't Snap, but I'm aware of those platforms. It just happens to not be, platforms I use, but I am on the gram. I'm there more often than I am on LinkedIn. That's a different creative space for me. LinkedIn is definitely a different audience, and it's definitely a different it's a different space as well. So just understand the platform that I think you want to be on, understand your audience. Also at the same time, really, try to take the time to really understand who you want to be known as, and then hopefully that's correlated to who you are. I would highly suggest, don't come up with this superhero of a character that you're nowhere close to being, right? Whether it be position or thoughts or philosophies. I take a lot of pride in the content that I post is not from a curator or a ghost writer. These are all sort of stemmed from experiences and thoughts that I have in my mind, that I find time in my busy life to be able to sort of put them down in a tablet or a digital notepad, and able to kind of distribute appropriately. So yeah, I think a lot of self work needs to happen first, before you can kind of get out there. I'm in the process of self work, so I think self work is a great thing to do for the rest of your life. But definitely once you start putting yourself out there in a public forum, there's a lot of different things that come with that I think a lot of people aren't prepared for. First and foremost, I think your company, finds it curious right away, or most companies do, especially if you haven't been doing it. So be prepared for that conversation, right? Your peers and others will probably ask you questions about your new online persona. And then you're going to have what I call, 5 to 10% of people that just, categorically are haters, right? So they just say, what are you trying to do? You trying to show off your cool outfit or your cool hair, or trying to look better than the rest of us? I mean, you're just going to have that percentage of people, but for some of us, we could work past that percentage of people that are just naysayers. For most of us, I'll be honest, it's very difficult to process that in our minds, because I think even as adults, we want to be liked by everybody. And so to find a place in your mind and heart to be okay with that 5 to 10% and never convincing them, because you just can't, and you never will. And so you stop trying. And then once you realize you stop trying and you could just move on and be your best self, it's pretty liberating. So.
I love that. That actually reminds me, Tony, of some advice that I received in class with NAAEI.
Yeah.
And that is and you know this as a public speaker, don't focus on out of 100 people in the audience, don't focus on the 10 who you're never going to reach.
Right.
Focus on the 90 that are paying attention, that are there for, for the right reasons, that want to hear what you have to say. Not everyone in this world is going to like you.
No.
But not everyone's going to matter either. So focus on,
And I'll tell you, Lori, and it's a great point that was made in that class, and obviously we're talking about it now. I will tell you, it is much harder accomplished than said. For whatever reason, we are caught up in the negative thoughts that people have of us. You see it all the time on the gram or Facebook, or all these quotes of cut those people out, right? Like it's a total thing that we're really struggling with. I think probably a lot of it has to do with American culture and society, and unfortunately, a lot of people try to tear people down, and it's a pretty common thing. We all have those people either in our lives, friends, family, or whatever, and you do have to find a way to put them in a designated box that they don't, they don't affect your spirit and your positivity and frankly, you accomplishing your vision or goals ahead. So,
Tony, I want to go to your most current experience, and I want for you to share with us here, with everybody, from personal experience, right? And provide some advice, if you would. How can a property management company leverage an industry influencer like Tony Souza to help attract the best industry talent? What are some really good ways to do that?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think what property management companies need to be really doing at a senior level and maybe a marketing level is to say, who do we have within our ranks currently that are internally movers and shakers and making positive impacts in the work that they do, the people and the sphere of influence that they're around. Who do we also have within our ranks that has tremendous reputation? And it doesn't have to be on a national level. That can come with support, publicity, strategic initiatives to get your name out there more, right? But But I do think it's important for companies to really, stop and take a look and see who they have that may have some interest in this type of role, which, listen, let's be honest, most are like, no, I'm good. Like, I like my day job. I like to do my thing, go home, see my family. I ain't got time for all that publicity. Cause I'll be honest, like it's not what it maybe, seems to be. And they may be right, but there are some of those unique unicorns, I would call them, that do feel like they have a calling, or they want to participate on a bigger stage in this way, to be an influencer, or to be an intention conduit for their company, to bring talent in, to at least have the conversation, right? In addition to their recruiting team and talent, acquisition teams, and to really complement them. The cool thing with what I'm doing here at RPM is, like, we're bringing everybody in the fold. I have weekly meetings with our senior recruiting teams and talent acquisition specialists, right? Like, we're all like linking in, and no pun intended, to really say, like, how can we use our powers combined and our influence combined and our networks combined to make the biggest splash and make the biggest impact in our industry. And at the end of the day, pull in some of the most, the best clients, of course, from an owner investor standpoint, but also some of the best talent in this country at all levels, and especially at the levels where we have trouble sourcing talent. And maybe that's maintenance, and maybe that's leasing sometimes, right? All VPs, all regionals, most of them are on LinkedIn, right? So how do you source some of these other positions out there? And I think it's leveraging who you currently have. I just think TikTok and sort of this social media influencer culture has accentuated some negative connotations to what maybe someone like me or someone even like you guys do, as though it's a bad thing or it's all self-promoting. I don't consciously think about self-promotion at this stage in my career. I really don't. I feel I'm there to participate, and I have a responsibility to a group of people that seem to care about some perspectives I have, or are just rah or excited about what RPM's doing. I don't think this is a terrible thing, and I think we need to probably break some of these stereotypes that people that can garner attention are bad people or self-promoting. Listen, I obviously I don't think that's true, because maybe I'm one of them.
But you know what? To add to that, Tony, another aspect of it is, one of the things that RPM Living does well is storytelling through social media. I think it's really in how you spin it, so to speak, using the influencers within your organization to tell that story about what it is like for your residents living at RPM Living, what it is like to work at RPM Living. I think it's not shameless self-promotion. That could, there is some misunderstanding out there that if you're out there promoting your brand or what you do, that you're doing it to show off. I really think, and that's one of the things I appreciate most about you, is you're authentic. One of the conversations we were having while you were on your intermission, changing your equipment around, is I was telling a story to the audience about a post that stuck out of my mind, that you put out there about, just because you got to a certain level, you didn't go out and buy the nicest house, you didn't go out and buy the nicest car. Like, you're content with what you have, and your focus is on, your passion for what you do and your family. And that, I just remember that post, and it just kind of, stuck out to me. So I think the moral of the story is, we have to stick to the reasoning behind it. We know the reasoning behind it. The storytelling is a way to attract, talent, attract the talent you want. What is the story that you're telling? Because you go where they are. They are on social media, right? So telling a powerful story is what's going to entice people to want to work for your organization. So there is a method to the madness. It's not shameless self-promotion like some people might think it is. But that does pose another question. Speaking of social media, you mentioned a few different platforms.
Yeah.
Which ones do you think show the most promise specifically for multifamily?
I think LinkedIn is completely being slept on. I don't think. I think there's some theories out there. Multifamily is not really playing on the Instagram space. TikTok, we'll call it X or Twitter. That's been an information share from the jump. I don't think it's a space that multifamily individuals or companies, you may, if you're a big enough company, I believe RPM has a handle there. If you want to send some press releases through there, right? That's an information share outlet. Facebook is, what Facebook is. But LinkedIn, frankly, and I think there's a couple different sort of perspectives on this. I think a lot of people also think that LinkedIn is becoming very busy and it's almost becoming Facebook-ish. That may be true, but something I've noticed over the years is what happens is with all platforms, and frankly with all like sort of career journeys, I think there's some people that jump in and said, I could do that. And they do it for all sorts of reasons, maybe not the most authentic. And what happens is, on a platform like LinkedIn that I think is sort of professional and as authentic as you're trying to be, you run out of steam quickly with some of the other creators because your well isn't as deep and you're there for some of the wrong reasons. I talked to Adrian about this sometimes as well. The cool part is when you're a storyteller, you never run out of content. The challenge is not everybody's a storyteller, right? Or a compelling storyteller or a great writer. And all of those things take practice, writing, storytelling. Great presenters, great keynotes are some of the best storytellers you've ever met, right? But they didn't do that on their first presentation either. It's the same for your first LinkedIn post, right? Like it's probably going to be your worst post, but you got to start somewhere, right? And so, but unfortunately, people are very nervous about it being so public, and failing in public is probably not only is public speaking people's fears, but I think failing in public is probably even more fearful or scary to most people. And frankly, that's why people come and go on that platform, is because they judge themselves too harshly about their engagement levels, and they overnight want to be Adrian Danila. And it just doesn't work like that. He's been working hard. He's probably the hardest working guy on LinkedIn for sure. And he works super hard in real life at his family and prior to this, his day job. So, which is now his small business, and he's growing his business in that way. So, so to answer your question succinctly, I think LinkedIn has a lot of room to run. I get it; it's evolved from what it was, and it's busier now. But is the quality of the content better or busier? I think LinkedIn and their team are going to figure out through the algorithm process how to filter out some of that that's not relevant to you anymore.
Interesting insight.
Tony, I would like for us to go back to some comments and questions from the audience.
I see a few of them coming in.
And I'm picking a couple, right? So the first one comes from a smart chick, and that's Megan Orser. Thank you for the comment and the question, Megan. You are so confident, and I love that, says Megan. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you fight it?
This is an interesting topic, and those who may follow me some know it's actually not really a topic I talk that much about, imposter syndrome. I actually think it's just sort of a trendy word. I understand what it means, but I think anyone who has a high level of ambition is consistently faced in their life and their career with feeling over their head, overwhelmed, or inadequate. And it's the nature of being ambitious that sort of the pendulum swing is you will feel uncomfortable for some amount of time because you've never been in this role and you've never done this. I've never been a company spokesperson in my life. But if someone asks me, do I have imposter syndrome in this role that I am in? No, because I don't think that I can't do it. And I think it starts with belief in yourself that you can do what you'd like to do, and almost anything you'd like to do if you work hard enough at it and you're patient. And every time I've been overwhelmed in a role, because much of my career, as people may know, if you just look at my online resume, I've just had the good luck of not laterally transferring often. It's always been growth opportunities, for a combination of reasons, largely probably luck. So I've always been in these uncomfortable positions for the first 6 months. And that's the best advice I give my associates and people around me, is to say, just give it 6 months before you like make any emotional feelings about what's happening. Just, you're drinking from a fire hose, just learn and trust yourself that you're going to figure this out. And 6 months may come around and you may figure out a couple of things. You don't like the job. You can't figure it out. You're having a hard time from a competency standpoint. Maybe you overtalked yourself into this job and you weren't ready. All of those things are okay. They're not the most deadly sin there is. You may have over leveraged yourself into a position you weren't ready for. Okay. Be honest with yourself, be honest with your organization. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to your company about it, then maybe a transition is appropriate for you to find a place that you feel more comfortable with. So, now the confidence piece, that for all of us is a process, and you don't learn to be confident overnight. You don't learn to be really confident even as an adult. Sometimes it's from our youth and a lot of our experiences in life. I was an Elvis impersonator at 9 years old, so I would be on stages with grown men singing Elvis Presley. And so I just now having like a 9-year-old, I'm like, that was really odd, but it just, I think it made me self-reflect that I've always been maybe a little different. And that is a theme that I do talk about on a lot of my posts, that I have been very different. And frankly, it hasn't always been invited or welcomed early on in my career. And unfortunately in society, if you are different, you sometimes can face some headwinds and a lot of negativity, which is a bummer. I'm not sure how to change that societal issue. All you can do, is double down on who you are. And ultimately you can control the tribe of people and the circle of people around you to support you in your differences. And ultimately, find people that are also different. So not sure if I answered that.
Tony, is being different a superpower? And how do you leverage that?
I think it's a lost. I think it's not pursued in a way that it should be. Frankly, I think we're all very different. Unfortunately, we've grown up in society that has told us to get in line and act like this, dress like this, do this like this, do this report like this, say this on a call, and we unknowingly just say okay, and we live decades and decades doing that until I think we get to a certain point of our life. Some of us, if you're fortunate enough to say, like, why am I doing all of that? Why have I done all that? And I don't know if I want to keep doing that. So for me, there were some pivotal moments in my life that caused me to really question a lot of why I did certain things or acted certain ways. And, and I'll tell you those two pivotal times right now. And I think 2024 will be one of those life moments for me and my family. But in 2018, I was diagnosed with vitiligo, which is, if you know what that is, it's the Michael Jackson autoimmune. You lose pigment, and you essentially you lose all the pigment in your skin, and potentially could cover 80% of your body. For me, that was a moment that I had to look myself in the mirror and really assess, how vain am I? And it was a tough time. And I remember, the dermatologist asking me and looking really directly at me and saying, how are you? Are you okay with this? You don't have an option, as you know, if you've received a diagnosis of any sort, you don't really have an option. The cool part of that story is I've taken, it kind of internally, and I try to eat as clean as I possibly can to try to limit the amount of sort of growth of the pigments happening. But that was a moment in my young life that I had to really question, and I call it the vanity disease. It really it really questions a lot of things. And we live in society, like I went down the road of, I'm going to be in boardrooms and people are going to ask me, what's wrong with that guy? And don't shake his hand and all sorts of things, because just culturally, if you don't know something or you're ignorant to something, you can sometimes even be mean about it. Right. And so that was my process. And then the pandemic was the other one for me that I worked through a tremendous amount of fears that I mentioned a little bit earlier, came out on the other side, and I think catapulted my energy and my optimism and my confidence and all that sort of thing. So, and I haven't looked back since. So those were just some pivotal life moments that I share with the audience, that I had to do a lot of reflection, but I'm on the other side of it, and I'm excited about that.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's not one I had heard. There's something to be said about our vanity, that's important to many of us. But there's also something to be said about what makes us different is also what makes us great. And I think that's a great message to share, not only with our audience, but within the industry, within your organization. None of us are perfect. We all have our own challenges too. That's one of the things I appreciate about your posts is your authenticity to share, that you've had challenges, and because we all have them, and that's what makes you real and relatable. So,
why do we love the artists we do? Why do we love the movie stars we do? Why do we love? And I learned a lot of this, and this is probably the cheat code that I learned as a young actor is actors don't act. My coach would say, they are, right? You sort of allow yourself to be yourself, and obviously you have a script and you have, scenes and other things, but the more authentic you can be with yourself and the scene and the connection that you're having with somebody in that scene is best. And, the reason why we love people in our lives and, teachers and supervisors and these people that have made such a big impact on our life is because there was something about them that was just different. And they were willing to be who they are. And I think in a society where we're afraid to do that, I think, a lot of people really, are really endeared by that and encouraged by that courage. And frankly, I think a lot of people that reach out to me privately struggle with that, and I think they see me as someone in my type of position with a fancy title that's willing to be myself, even though it doesn't fit that corporate, puffy vest and khakis, right? Like I'm a little eccentric, but I'm okay with that.
Representation matters. Somebody's going to see you and your authenticity of, what challenges you've had in life and what you've been faced with. They're going to identify that with that. And that's, going to make them feel better about who they are. I'll say it, and I'll say it all the time. Representation matters. When I'm teaching, the message I want to share with my audience, no matter whoever that is that show up and be who you are. I'm going to show up and be who I am. Show up and be who you are. I want to know who you are. I want to know you for you. And let's not focus on what makes us different. Let's focus on what makes us the same. What do we have in common? And so how do you find ways to bridge the gap? I mean, you obviously have a large network. And so how do you find ways to welcome people into the fold as their authentic selves and embrace them for who they are and let them know that it's okay to be a little bit different? Because you do have a large network and a lot of people, look up to you. What advice do you have for somebody who might be struggling with feeling like, maybe they're different, or maybe they don't belong in a corporate environment because they don't fit that mold?
I think it's a great question. I think they should trust their gut. I think they should trust their intuition of what they feel is appropriate for them. Now the question is, do they want to be there? Do they want a seat at that table? Or are they feeling the pressures of others around them to say, you need to be at that table? We can unpack this in a lot of different ways. And if you do want to be at that table, then I do think that there's a balance in finding a way in and changing the game from the inside out, right? So the society and corporate culture, there is a game to be played, right? We could all stand on the sidelines and say, we don't like this game and the rules. And some do, right? Like we're going to change the rules, and I think changing the rules from the outside in is much more difficult. It still can be done, right? But I think changing the rules or evolving the rules maybe is a better way of saying that, to be more inclusive or to be more thoughtful about, these practices, corporate, practices or corporate norms, if you will, is by the inside out, right? And so I probably find myself more inside than outside in that way. And so I now think it's imperative upon me, and I'm very conscious of the responsibility I now have for others on the outside, that I can change it from the inside out, not in a dramatic way or that's, flipping over tables and we're going to do this all differently, but I'm going to do it in a way that I feel comfortable doing, but also in a way that I've earned the trust of the people around me to where they're saying, oh, okay. Like, and sometimes you have to show them and not tell them. And this is a conversation Adrian and I have had a lot, especially if you're unique or a little different or have different perspectives. You could tell somebody 1,000 times, but once you show them, they often seem to get it more often and quicker than you telling them. And the essence of what I do right now with this network and being trying to be a lightning rod of attention for my company, is maybe something I was doing before I was doing it. Right. So it wasn't, me under a rock, not building relationships or understanding content or understanding the attention economy and just, I want to be a spokesperson. Well, okay. But how about you go play in that space a bit and see, if that's something you want to do, something you think is valuable to the marketplace. And then people and companies will approach you. And I think things are changing pretty rapidly. I think Adrian's experiencing this. Lori, people are reaching out in all sorts of ways, personal relationships, maybe business relationships. For me, it's just an endless amount of DMs of people wanting to be, a part of RPM. And to me and to my team, that's a big metric for, are we doing this right or are we not? And I think we're doing a lot of things right.
I would agree. I think the fact that people know that your company has a strong culture stems from organically from people sharing. There was actually, if you don't mind me sharing this, Adrian,
Sure.
I had a comment caught my eye. Keith writes, I love working for RPM. Tony, I learn a lot from you and your posts, and it helps me be a better leader for my teams.
Yeah,
I would say that's positive. It's working.
I've never met Keith in real life, but I know Keith, and he's very engaged online and through LinkedIn, and he's very encouraging. Still, when I read these comments, Lori, to know that someone like me, makes this level of impact to guys like Keith and others, is still pretty overwhelming and incredibly humbling. But yeah, I think that's the essence of organic culture, right? Now I just happen to be sort of put in a place to where I can yell it from the mountaintops, right? And it's, it seems like people are listening and excited about it. And we see the metrics and the numbers and the messages are becoming overwhelming for our recruiters and myself, just with their interest. And so, do I think other PMCs should take note? I do. But I also don't think it's going to be that easy overnight to figure this out. more power to them. But obviously, we're full go, and and we're 10 steps ahead. So we're excited about that.
A lot of great comment, Tony, from the audience, and this comes from Jenna Frazier. I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly, Jenna. Talent acquisition professionals are the organization's brand ambassadors. It's
Amen.
important to have them align with the vision and values. What's your take?
Absolutely, 100%. She's right. And those are, as they say, those are my people. I love talent acquisition professionals, recruiters. Some could argue like that. I'm just, I'm that sort of a content creator recruiter in a lot of ways, and I'm okay with that as well. So I love talent acquisition folks, professionals. They are the absolute brand ambassadors. They carry the flag in all sorts of ways. And at the end of the day, everyone needs to carry their flag, right? From ops to support team members, to talent acquisition folks, to recruiters. Sure, they maybe gave me a bigger stage to wave my little flag, but I've been doing that before I've had this stage.
So that actually, that poses a question from my mind. One thing that I know RPM Living is known for is having, from the internal level, a strong education and professional development department. Not every multifamily organization has an internal training department, for example. So what do you feel the importance is, and why is it such a strong focus for RPM Living to have such a robust education and professional development department?
Yeah, obviously there's more seasoned and experienced folks on the L&D side than me, for sure, at RPM. But I think we would all agree, and they would sit here and tell you, if you don't provide the support in curriculum and training, both in person and virtual, then I'm not sure how you can expect team members to do the job appropriately. And if they're not doing the job appropriately, I don't know how you can expect them to succeed or excel in their job. So training and support, the RPM, L&D team and training team would absolutely tell you it's the lifeblood of our company. And we're working, I know that team is working very hard, to make sure that we have the resources and platforms in place to be able to provide that resource to every level associate that's there. And so, yes, I can't say more about how important that is. I know, Laura, you spend a lot of time in that lane, and I commend you for your work, the work that you do there.
Thank you.
And frankly, I think it's can be thankless at times, but it's maybe one of the most important parts of a company.
Yeah, I would actually say I don't. While some days may feel thankless or overwhelming, because it is a considerable amount of work and it's a considerable amount of responsibility. I just wanted the masses to hear from you, like really just the importance of, if they have not considered doing that, there's ways for you to start where you are. Are they going to have a robust L&D department the way you do? No, but everybody can start somewhere. Yeah. But everybody needs to provide that support. But
and I think for those smaller companies, Lori, and you do work with NAA and probably other associations regionally, they have resources available to you too. So at the end of the day, what your employees expect of you, if you don't have a robust department, or let's say you don't have a department at all, that you be resourceful and thoughtful in providing the resources to your team to learn, train, and get better at their craft, while providing that support along the way. So you don't have to have a robust RPM Living L&D division, but you do have to show your company or your employees that you care about this. And I think maybe that's the point that you were alluding to, that I do think that there can be sometimes in this industry, a perspective that, oh, well, it's just training and marketing. Gosh, I think if we've learned anything through the pandemic and post-pandemic, like maybe, those are some of the most vital parts of an organization. So, I know we're quick to consider cutting those divisions, but if you don't have training and support, and you don't obviously, have marketing support, both property marketing support and obviously brand awareness, from a marketing standpoint. I'm not sure how you're sourcing business, and ultimately, I'm not sure how you're supporting and training your workforce. So,
you're bringing me to an episode that I just filmed like a week ago, and my brilliant guest said, everybody needs to understand this. This comes from professional sports, from sports. Teams that don't train don't win. I thought that was incredibly brilliant, and mic drop right after that. Teams that don't train don't win. So it's a paradox, right? We're looking at training and learning and development being the first departments that we got to eliminate when the times are tough.
Mhm.
How could you perform better with people that are untrained, that are not ready for the task at hand?
I think it's an industry issue, to be honest, and I think it stemmed from the Great Resignation. Mass vacancies in positions, vital roles, maintenance being one of them. Adrian, you know that better than anybody. You've been very close to that movement for years, and you have, for a big organization like ours, right? I mean, you sometimes have hundreds, if not thousands, of people starting on a single day, which is wild to think about, right? Probably more hundreds than thousands on a single day, but in large portfolio takeovers, things like that. How do you provide them the tools and resources they need to be successful? How do you ramp that up so quickly? And I think that's a work in progress in this industry. I think most would agree with me in that, because of the Great Resignation and a lot of the shifting that's happened. I think there's been, we'll call it the Great Reset or whatever the case is. But I do think that there's a lot of people in this industry now that have never been in this industry, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I think a lot of them also don't have the tools and resources they need to be successful. And so they may sell our industry short, or, sell a company short, say, I don't know if I like multifamily. I don't know if I like this company. Well, what they're really trying to say is, I just don't know if I have the support or the tools or resources to be successful. And so therefore my experience was not awesome. And so maybe I'll go either look for another company or maybe find another industry. And I think as an industry, I think globally need to do a better job of providing tools, resources, and support in that way.
We need to invest in our employees is what it comes down to. If an employee that feels invested in, one of the reasons I've stayed with my employer as long as I have is because they invest in my professional development, obtaining industry designations and certifications specific to my craft, specific to the industry. If you're not investing in your employees in that way, they're going to disengage and they're going to leave. And everyone's hiring, right?
Everyone's hiring, and you got Tony over here, creating all this content to entice them. So yeah.
Shameless plug there. RPM is hiring. I do have a question for, we kind of, I'm going to, pivot a little bit here. You talked about challenges and things that we can do better as an industry. So what do you see from your perspectives as having been a head of operations in recent years to your current role? What do you foresee is the greatest challenge on the horizon for multi-operations in the near future, being the next maybe 12 to 24 months? What do you think the greatest challenge for us as an industry? If you were able to have a crystal ball and forecast.
Well, I know it's going to be the biggest challenge in the next 12 months is a soft economy, and it's happening now. It's been happening for the last 6 months. We talked about training and marketing. We're seeing a lot of and I don't want to scare people to think that's coming indefinitely, but when the economy gets difficult, all companies, all owners and clients, they really assess costs, right? Because their mortgages are going up, interest rates continue to remain high, insurance levels are high on the property side. So for our business, which the X's and O's of our business is real estate, right? Investing in real estate and making it profitable. And we do that, and we have third party, and owner management companies with people come in, and we've talked a lot about the people, but at the end of the day, it's an X's and O's business. And I think a lot of companies are going to be faced with this question we talked about, like, if we do have to pull back or cut or consolidate, how do we do that? And how do we go about that? In the third party world that we're in, we have a notable amount of sway or influence with clients, but ultimately clients are going to do what they think is best also, to keep the property running, functioning, profitable. Obviously, we don't want to see any investor sort of go through a foreclosure process. I mean, at the end of the day, I know this doesn't sound like as sexy as some of the other topics we talked about, but the next 12 months will be a challenge to make sure that you run a very profitable property. And so, if you're on site, for example, I think you stay locked in to property operations, work very closely with your regional and regional vice presidents in finding ways to optimize, create efficiencies, save where you can. Start having those conversations. If you're a smaller group or a larger group, are there centralization opportunities, for work orders or other things that are out there? I think our industry gets really hyper tense when we start talking about centralization, right? It's like, that's taking my job. There's some jobs today that should be automated. Let's be honest, right? I'm not going to name them by name, but they should be. And I'm not saying jobs in and of themselves, but tasks, right? Not job or job roles, but tasks can be automated. That doesn't necessarily mean it's eliminating jobs or roles. And business is fluid. And so, if you know anything about business, right, you have to sort of roll with these cycles, survive, so you can come out on the other end and have a job, have, resources to support you and your family, all those sorts of things. So, I think property operations is going to be, I think it's going to be a main focus in the next 12 months. And at the same time, there's going to be competing pushes for utilizing AI, centralization, automation, all at the same time. And so I think it's going to be important. If I can give any advice is, if you're following people or you're connected to people or leaders within your organization, stay close to them, pick their brain, get their guidance. What do they think is happening so that you can understand a little bit better about really what's happening. So you don't get caught up in, as they say, get caught up in your feelings, right? Or get caught up in your emotions and overreact or have a lot of fears about a lot of this. Everyone's going to be okay. We just need to kind of pull together as a community, a multifamily, and link together and come together to help each other get through this storm that will come again in 10 to 12 years.
So that, those are all really amazing points. And so being in your role, your unique vantage point now being your current position, when there's a lot of chatter out there on social media about people being fearful about their positions being cut with this word that has now only somewhat developed an ugly connotation, and that being centralization and centralized offices. From your perspective, in your current role as media relations and really being the brand ambassador of the organization, how do you handle keeping employee morale up when there's fear of positions being eliminated and there's fear of the unknown as far as they're concerned, especially if they're not decision makers within your organization?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, how do you offset fear? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but ultimately I think focusing on the silver lining of things, right? So you can only control what you control. And I think focusing on that is going to be key. So those are the conversations that we're having internally. I'm having within the industry of people reaching out that maybe are hyper overreacting, is to say, what can you control, right? And really having them sort of like pull back from this, like what's happening in the industry to, okay, this is what I can do. I can find, if my company's not providing, training, certification resources and growth opportunities, they're out there through associations, through other programs, right? So you can control that. Financially, you find a sponsor, right? There's different ways that you can do that to grow yourself that then you can also continue to be valuable, right? Understand what AI means, understand what centralization means, do yourself a favor and understand really what that what those terms mean within the context of our industry versus just a scary buzzword, right? Like for some reason, we all get caught up on social media about scary buzzwords. Often it's politically, right? Like we kind of throw them around like scare people. Politicians do a lot of that, but I think it's important for associates in our business to like pull back and say, what does centralization mean? Like, and what does it mean not only for the industry, but what does it mean for my job? What does it mean like for my property potentially? If it's concerning, or I think that there's some threat to my job, how can I navigate this potential obstacle or threat by enhancing my own value, so that when a client or my company looks at my role or the property I'm at and says, what value, what working value do you provide here? You should be able to speak, very quickly to 5 to 10 things, right? Versus like, well, good question. That should not be your answer, right? So, but it does take some work and some effort and some research and some introspection, and also just also reaching out to people that are smarter than you as well and understand these terms as well. Build that tribe, right? Because they're going to help and protect you along the way. And listen, I know we're concluding sort of the end of the show, and I don't want to sort of open it up into this brand, personal branding, sort of piece. But I think this is only going to continue to happen because, as potential layoffs happen and other things like that, you want to have a network of people that you can reach out to, that both know you and you know them. If something does happen to your employment, that someone could say, "Oh, I've seen you. I've heard about you. Let's get you in the door. Let's get you on the phone. Let's talk about opportunities that we may have." And I'll use the reverse scenario. RPM is, from what I can tell from my vantage point, we're only growing and expanding, right? So it's not all doom and gloom, right? Mm-hmm. We have companies, obviously RPM. I'm sure there's others there that in this fee managed world that are continuing to grow, and we are. So we're mindful of our spend. We're managing expenses across the spectrum, both corporately and on site. But at the same time, we grew through the pandemic, and so in every obstacle, there's opportunity. And so we are seeing this contraction, and I think a lot of the fear in the market as an opportunity for us to continue to grow our business model, our business, and continue to attract the best talent that may be let go at another organization, but they're happy to join us here as we grow. So again, with every obstacle, there's opportunity, and you have to find silver lining in it all.
You also have to know your own worth too. One of the things I encourage my team members to do is to, tell summary of accomplishments. What have you accomplished as an individual? What have we accomplished as a department? Like understanding and knowing your own value, also understanding what your opportunities to grow and improve are, and focusing on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes with confidence and being able to really, write those down, right? I think people just feel uncomfortable writing those down as though that's some level of self-promotion. Well, you have to evaluate, your tangible value to an organization or to a company. And it's okay to do that. And frankly, you're going to be probably pretty impressed with how long that list is. And that'll make you feel good about yourself. So
before switching gears, Tony, I do want to acknowledge our attendees, our friends that are still hanging out with us.
I was going to say, is there anybody? I can't see the numbers or anything. I didn't know if it was just us three at this point. So
we are an hour and 43 minutes in, and we still have the hardcore audience right there with us. There are not a handful of people. There are a lot more than that. Now, for those of you that have been following my podcast and my first podcast, Chronicles, and so were part of the live events, Tony was one of them. This is not the first time that we are going on for 2 hours, right? When you come to join me and Tony Souza, you're going to be in for a treat. We're not advertising it. We just live in it. And I want to say, for those of you that are still there, please drop some lines in the comments, right? We'd love to hear from you. And we still have a little ways to go. And now it's the time to switch gears. And Tony, I want to talk about influencer marketing. Influencer marketing has been around for several years. On Instagram, I think, on Instagram, this term was crafted. I could be wrong, but this is how I learned about it, right?
TikTok too is another platform for it.
Of course, but TikTok just kind of like came to light or like became popular years after Instagram. That's where it started. So the question for you is this: is there room for successful influencer marketing campaigns in a multifamily space, and how can they impact a brand's visibility or credibility?
So, and when you say influencer marketing, it's not company spokesperson. You're saying somebody who maybe has a large following in a different genre. Can we bring them into the fold for
Totally.
interest? Yeah,
Totally. Just like a third-party service, if you wish,
Yeah.
not an employee.
So it's interesting enough you asked that. Obviously, it's a relevant topic. Yeah, I have a lot of influencers reach out to me. Hey, John, how are you? I have a lot of influencers reach out to me to say, hey, does RPM want to leverage me and my audience? I have 160,000 Instagram followers. And I think the questions that PMCs need to really ask themselves, and I know we do as well, is first of all, of that 160,000 followers, you got to break down that segment of that audience, right? Like, is that you name it, right? Is that essentially a segment of an audience that has anything to do with property management or your company's goals or your marketing's goals? If the answer is yes, then explore it. If the answer is no, it's an easy answer, right? It's obviously no, this isn't going to work. This doesn't make sense. But if there's opportunity, I think, to leverage very well-known, influencers, and obviously there's tiers of that, right? Like you got The Rock, and then you got us, at the very bottom. No offense, guys, but so I think all up and through, you're gonna pay for what you get, and to me, all what an influencer is again, it's an attention getter, right? And somebody with visibility. I haven't seen an influencer campaign. I've seen some properties try to make it work. I think I've seen a short life and sort of a short pop of opportunity. Maybe it might lead some folks in during, for a promotion. I just haven't seen a sustained life for that. And I think influencers are trying to find this balance of also still being their authentic self, something I talked about, which is tricky, versus them trying to push, a product or a service or a company onto their audience. I think the audience today is, especially the social media audience, is super savvy. And as soon as they smell like an influencer like that got paid out or is selling out and starts to push a product or a service or call it a property management company, I think they emotionally check out. I don't know if they full unfollow, but I think they emotionally disconnect from that message. And with social media being so darn noisy, it's so easy just to keep swiping, keep moving. Like, you may unfollow, you may not, but I don't have the data in front of me to see, are the conversions, the influencer would say yes, absolutely. But I just don't think the data is there to support the conversion from the attention to the sale, if that makes sense. I think it's more strategic of companies to consider, listen, I don't want to give the secrets out, but the secret's out, right? Like, I'm the company spokesperson, but I think it's more strategic of PMCs to consider going the route that I'm in and what we're doing at RPM, because what the audience knows is this person has relevance, right? Has depth, is connected to this industry. And so because of that, I think there's a much higher conversion of somebody who engages either in my content or in my DMs, and then, goes through the hiring process and gets a job, right? Versus, an influencer gets attention and then what's the percentage of sales on the conversion? So, that's my take. I'm no expert in that space. That's my hunch. I do think it's more worth and more valuable for them to find people within the organization that has a reputation and has influence within the industry, and to give them the support, tools, and training to help leverage, whatever their initiatives are.
Just want to go back and say, Tony, we just gained 5 more viewers in the last 5 minutes. Like, how amazing is a social media platform? This is what the Hangout does to you. You just kind of go, show up.
We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out.
That's exactly what we do. And like, we gain 5 viewers. Like, this is amazing, right?
We love this.
We're not a huge show, but in our little niche out here, our little hangout, we gain 5 viewers. This is truly amazing, and
cool.
we appreciate all of you that join us.
And I hope they jump in the comments too, because I mean, you guys may have, your guys' questions have been incredible, guys, both of you, and really have caused me to really think thoughtfully about my answers. But if they have any questions, I think this is awesome time to just kind of jump in there. And like I said in the comments, right, there's no questions off the table, so let's just hang out.
I like to highlight a comment from earlier, Josh Anderson. I don't know if Josh is still with us or not, but he said it's the times where support and kindness are a challenge, is when it matters most. Always be kind, but make sure to stay kind even when certain people are challenging.
Yeah,
Josh said it well.
Good.
There's a quote. Now that I'm trying to quote it, but ultimately it's a kindness quote, that there's really never a reason to be an a-hole. As much as like our ego wants to tell us to act a certain way or treat somebody a certain way, I think as you learn in life, and often as you get older as well, you realize, there's really no place for that. It doesn't help any circumstance at all.
I think as leaders too, Tony, you have a responsibility. People, I believe it was Maya Angelou who said, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And that's a double-edged sword. So as leaders, we're aiming to that their experience was an overall positive one, even as they separate the organization. If they're leaving for an advancement opportunity, they're supporting that and supporting them is often the reason they end up coming back to the organization too. They may leave and then they, it's a boomerang effect. They come back. So we do have that responsibility as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the quote that I was referring to that came to mind is, it's nice to be known, but it's better to be known for being nice. Right. So
yeah. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. This was my first co-hosting gig. I'm usually the one in the hot seat. So thank you, Tony, for taking that seat for us today. And it wasn't me for a change. But I always enjoy having conversations. I enjoy speaking with people. And that's why I keep putting myself out there. Any advice, any parting words? I know we're actually coming up in 2 hours. I'm impressed, Adrian. I didn't think... Maybe I didn't know, but I didn't think you guys could go for 2 hours straight. But it actually went pretty quickly, and it was very enjoyable. And thank you, Tony, for everything that you've shared. Kind of really almost kind of bearing your soul a bit, and sharing some really personal things. And that's how you connect with your audience. And I thrive, when, on people that do that. So thank you for everything that you shared and for joining us today. So. Adrian, you've got a good gig going here.
We're building a gig here. I'm just very grateful for all of you that are here, that are hanging out with us. It means a lot to me. I think the space needs a lot more conversations like this. We're just scratching the surface. We're just getting started. This is just the beginning of what I'm trying to do. Again, I try to bring everybody to the table, make all the voices heard, and provide valuable content, not because I am a valuable content creator, but through my honorable guests and an amazing co-host today. They're the ones that are making the show. To me, they're the ones that are bringing a value. They're those in the audience that are watching now live, and then those that are going to watch the recordings and the shorts and the full episode are going to take some of your wisdom and just be better as a result of watching this conversation. Tony, any closing thoughts for us? Anything that, of course, there's so much that remains unsaid that's gonna lead us into the next 2-hour episode, or maybe we try a 3-hour next time. But any closing thoughts or right now for this conversation?
Well, I just want to thank both of you guys for having me here. Lori, you did an exceptional job, and I really appreciate your thoughtful questions. I could tell they're partly on paper, but I think a lot of them came from your mind and heart, and I think that's always best, and I'm sure the audience appreciated that direction. Adrian, you came out of the gate hot with some tough questions, which I knew you would. So I appreciate you as always, and our friendship, of course. And again, to everybody, if there's anyone still listening, which I don't know if they are, I appreciate everyone's time, as I always do, and again, I'm just greatly appreciative of this opportunity I have with RPM, and frankly, the position I find myself in multifamily. I'm not sure exactly how I got here, but I have no intention of going anywhere. I do understand that I and others have a responsibility to keep these conversations going, to be committed to what's right and what's fair and what's honest. And I'm just committed to doing that on these platforms. I'm committed to doing that in content as well. As you can imagine, much of what I do in that way is therapeutic for me as well. That's important for me to process all the things that I go through and new adventures that I face as well, which much of what I do on a day job is a new adventure every day for me. And as you guys know, I'm expecting a new life in our family next year. So on top of everything and busy conference season, I'll also have a new bundle that will be joining us. So I just want to say thanks to you guys, and Adrian, always, I appreciate you reaching out so early in the season to kick this show off. And hopefully I did what I came on to do, is to give you eyeballs and give you attention and some ratings. And hopefully people appreciated our conversation today.
Lori, any closing thoughts? You've been a co-host, I believe, for the first time of a podcast. I know you've been co-hosting other events in the past, but right here on a Hangout, for sure, it's a premiere. So how did it feel? And any closing thoughts?
First of all, thank you, Adrian, for the opportunity. I was a guest on, Multifamily Chronicles. We had a great conversation. We could have spoken for 2 hours, actually, or longer. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I really enjoy our conversations. I've enjoyed getting to know you and now working with you. This was great. I really enjoyed doing this. So I'm hoping you'll have me back at some point. I love speaking to people. I love learning from people. Which is why I'm always engaging in conversation. I'm a lifelong learner. If you look me up on LinkedIn, that's literally the first set of words, and my tagline is lifelong learner, because that is who I am. One of the most profound things that I did in my personal life is figuring out, my why, my purpose, my passion, and mine is to live a life in service to others. And that looks many different ways. And this is one of those ways, having the opportunity to reach the masses and speak and help you out in launching this show and having this great conversation with Tony is another way for me to give back, so to speak. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you both, Lori, Tony. Thank you, all of you that hung out with us today. I want to thank our friends and sponsors. A very special thank you to Apartment Snapshot. They're making these broadcasts possible and all the content possible. I do wanted to say that, stay tuned. Next Thursday, we're going to have Tony Harris is going to be our guest. Stay tuned for that and more information. Again, we hope to see you back here. We hope to see you back here soon in larger numbers, as large as possible. We're building community. That's the goal. And we're doing the real conversations here. Thank you again for hanging out with us and being on the Multifamily Hangout. Have a great afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.